Hi, everybody. Welcome to Homestead and welcome to my channel. Breaking news today. Who would have thought? I'm going to wait for some people to get in here. Hope everyone's having a good day. Hope you've had a chance to at least start the video that I put out today about the gospel going to every nation, kindred, and tongue. A pretty good video. I'm going to have to continue studying, see what else I can find. I had the question. This wasn't about the video, but on the video that I did about Revelation chapter 20, I was wondering about that period of time after the millennium. How long is it supposed to be? Do we have any indication of that? And there was a commenter, I can't remember who it was, that said that Bruce R. McConkie had something to say about that in the Millennial Messiah. So at some point I'll be looking into that and I'll share that with you. Or you can just go there now if you have Millennial Messiah and check that out. Timmy's here. He says hello and waves. Got 32 so far. Does anybody know, or have you been watching what's been happening today in Israel? Anybody aware of what I'm about to do this video about? International health coach with 7 sunflowers. It's a very good number. Phil and Malia waits. It's been a while since catching you on a live. Yeah, it sounds about right. You're one of the accounts that I remember. I wish I could remember everybody, but you guys always, I don't know. Long history, I guess. Michael and Brittany Schrader. No, pray tell. Maybe they mean please tell. Daniel Hershey. Hey, Jared. Trisha Christensen. You are my news. I guess you're not getting very much news then. Taranar, hey, I'm finally on a live from Draper. Draper is in Utah, in case you didn't know. Phil Amalia waits. I've been around since you had 2,000 followers. I love your channel. Good. I'm glad. That was a long time ago. International health coach. Nice hat. I'm only wearing it because I haven't been able to get a haircut yet. we had to buy that stupid van. We have a Grand Caravan, bought it with cash, and we had to get some tires and do all this other stuff. So I'm kind of like waiting for a week or two before I can get a haircut, which is fine. Eric Ryle, Submariner on deck. You are? Are you being serious right now? You're in the Navy? Is that what you're saying? What are you saying, Eric Ryle? Patsy Reinhardt, hi from Blackfoot, Idaho. Hello. Daniel Hershey, I was at the San Antonio temple, so no ideas unless things went bad to worse. Well, yeah, they did, and they are. Eric Ryle, yes, retired. Cool. I initially, when I was trying to join the military, I started with the Air Force because I went to school, got an aircraft dispatcher license, and I wanted to be in aviation, but I was too old for the Air Force. And then I tried with the Navy, and that was taking a long time. Ended up in the Army, which was it was the right thing for me. Timmy says, what happened in Israel? We're about to get to that. Right now we got 60 people, so give it just one more minute. Michael and Brittany Schrader, pray tell, idiom, old-fashioned. Used for emphasis to demand an answer when asking someone for a reason, explanation. Oh, okay. So you were demanding from me information. What was it that you said? I can't find it anymore. Okay. The Tractor Legacy. Hi, Jared. I have had a thought in my mind about patriarchal blessing. It had bothered me and don't want to be overbearing, but do you know of anyone who hasn't lived up to their patriarchal blessing? I think I've heard of it before. I know under rare circumstances you can get another patriarchal blessing. I remember one time in my singles ward, there was one guy that felt that he had gone too far astray, and he questioned whether he was still worthy of those blessings. I'm not sure I can really tell you anything about that. I'd probably just talk to your bishop or do some personal research. And if anybody else has any information on that, feel free to chime in the chat. Taranar, what do you think about the new Come Follow Me going to a single manual? Are more changes coming? 1 hour church, another pandemic? I don't know. I don't have any thoughts on that at this time, but it probably has to do with all this like streamlining and stuff, making church simplified, easier, probably for an influx of people joining the church. That's what I tend to think. Okay, so again, I'm not doing OBS for this stream. That's the program I use where I can like share the screen, but I'm not doing that. It's just simpler, just hopping on here. So basically, let me give you kind of like in a nutshell, what's going on. So you might remember the last live stream I did. There was a bunch of rocket fire, and it was in response to a prisoner, uh, one of Israel's, Palestinian prisoners, like he was a terrorist, and he went on a hunger strike, and then he died while in as a prisoner. And so, in response, I think it was mostly, I can't remember if it was both Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, but they started firing rockets from Gaza, right? And so there was kind of like this like flare up. I'm gonna read a little bit of some articles in just a minute, but I think there were like at least over 100 rockets that were fired from Gaza. And so I did a live stream because like it seemed like things were going to intensify. In fact, I did a little poll here on the chat, and most people thought that it was probably going to escalate, but then it didn't. Like there were some strikes by the Israeli Air Force, in Gaza, but then things just kind of like they just quieted down, just kind of like it's like it almost didn't even happen. And so nothing really happened until today. It turns out that a lot of us are right. There was going to be escalation. And the escalation comes in the form of Operation Shield and Arrow by the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces. That's their military. So they didn't just give up. It's just that from what I've seen and what I've heard, they were waiting for the right circumstances. I don't know. I don't know what exactly, if it was like weather or intelligence or something like that, but they were waiting for the right set of circumstances to do this strike that they carried out today. They took out 3 Palestinian Islamic Jihad commanders or leaders, and it was like precision strikes. Like if you didn't know, the U.S. and other countries, I guess Israel too, they have the ability to like attack. For example, in this case, it was like residential structures, condos, apartments. They're able to knock out like an individual like room in condo and apartment, just that, not the other floors. Like that's how precise they're able to strike. And so they took out these 3 guys, and they're expecting a response. And essentially, well, let me get into this. There's like a bunch of other things going on. So I'm going to my Twitter. Okay, so the last time that we were looking at a flare up in Israel, I'm looking at the tweets here. It looks like it was on the 2nd of May. So that was like a week ago, 7 days ago. Today's the 9th. Okay. So I'm just going to read some of these tweets that I retweeted. They're not necessarily in chronological order. So this is from Israel Radar 14 hours ago. Israel prepares for massive rocket attacks from Gaza. Train traffic in South halted, some roads closed. Flights at Ben Gurion Airport shifted northbound because Gaza is south of there. And then rocket fire will trigger fresh Israeli strikes in Gaza. Air Force on standby. Now that 14 hours ago, with like what's going on right now, that was like a long time ago. That was kind of like more toward the beginning. 4 hours ago, Lebanese army raises alert along Israeli border. That's also reported by Israel Radar. We'll skip that for now. 21 hours ago, this is from the official Israeli Defense Forces Twitter account. The IDF has just announced the beginning of Operation Shield and Arrow. Follow the updates in real time. So, and I saw that repeated. I can't remember who I was watching, if it was like 7 News Israel or whatever, but they were talking about the fact that this operation, what just happened over the last 21 hours, is just the beginning, the taking out of those 3 leaders. Now, as of right now, as I'm speaking to you, I haven't heard of any rockets being fired, and the question is, who's going to fire rockets? Who's going to participate? Where are they going to come from? Is it just going to be from Gaza, or are there going to be some that come from the West Bank? Are there going to be any that come from up north, from Lebanon or Syria? They don't really know. But essentially, what they're doing, the IDF, is they're responding to terrorism. So, in other words, like that initial response last week, that was kind of just like the very beginning of fighting back against Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. But so, like, after everything kind of quieted down, I remember people talking about, like, what, this is all that you're going to do? Like, criticizing Netanyahu and the military. Like, you're not going to do more. You're just going to do limited strikes, and that's it. Well, it turns out no. It's just that they needed to, like, wait for the right time to carry out the strike that they did over the last 21 hours. Israel conflict news again says, seems like the factions are going to play the waiting game for a bit. That was 6 hours ago. And I don't know. I guess I'm kind of surprised that they haven't responded yet, but let's see what time it is in Israel. I think they're like 8 hours ahead of us here in the US Central time zone. It's 1:11 a.m. So I don't know what time they would do strikes, if they would wait until early in the morning or if they would do it overnight. I'm not sure. But I haven't seen any responses so far. Okay, Hanania Naftali. He's like he's an Israeli, and he reports news essentially. He's basically, I think he's like a citizen journalist, I'm not sure. Anyway, breaking. This is 6 hours ago. Prime Minister Netanyahu says Israel is preparing for a multi-front war with Iran. Now, that's kind of not new, because you might remember I did a video a while ago, probably a week or two ago, where the Minister of Defense essentially said the same thing. He didn't necessarily say Iran specifically, if I remember right. He just kind of said that Israel's preparing for a multi-front war, and to expect that kind of conflict instead of like isolated skirmishes, right? And so unless I forget, I think this is the first time that they're saying, like, no, specifically this multi-front war, it's going to be with Iran, which was already kind of understood before, because Iran is the one that is using a lot of these groups as proxies, or they try to like organize them and coordinate things. In fact, if you go to my Twitter, if you have Twitter, I retweeted something from Israel Alma, and they have a little, like, a graphic kind of showing Iran in the different groups that they're coordinating with. And on this graphic, it says the Shiite Axis Joint Operations Room. 7 arenas. So you got Lebanon, where you have Hezbollah and Hamas that operate from there. So, and then you have Syria, where you have, well, there's these 2 groups I haven't really heard of before: Liwa Zainabiyon and Liwa Fatamiyon, and then Hezbollah and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. So Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, and those two weird groups in Syria. So 4 in Syria, 2 in Lebanon. In Iraq, I mean, I don't think these groups in Iraq attack Israel, but I think that Iran has like kind of like control over them. There's Kataib, Hezbollah, in Asaib, al Haq, in Harakat Hezbollah, al Nujaba, whatever. In Yemen, there's the Houthis. Like you may be aware of the fact that there's been like a civil war going on in Yemen. I don't know if it's still going or not, but that was kind of like a proxy war between um, Saudi Arabia and in Iran, or Iran, however you want to pronounce it. And Iran was behind the Houthis. I think that they were trying to rise up and take over the government. In the Gaza Strip, there's Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And then in the West Bank or Judea and Samaria, you have Abu Ali Mustafa brigades, Hamas, Al Aqsa Martyrs Brigade. I've heard of them before. And then Palestinian Islamic Jihad. So I guess the 7 arenas are Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Iran, whatever, Yemen, Gaza Strip, and then the West Bank. But essentially it shows like there's like a graphic showing how Iran is like connecting with all these different groups and coordinating them. Let me take a little break from that, see what everyone's saying in the chat. Eric Ryle used to work on the Trident missile. I scored too high on the ASVAB, so the Army deferred. Yeah. My family was Army. My last duty station was Cape Canaveral doing test launches of the Ohio boats. That's really cool. International health coach. A second patriarchal blessing is possible, but the Lord knows all. On rare occasions, it's appropriate. Talk to your bishop, and you can talk directly to your state patriarch. A very, very prayerful decision. Yeah, that's probably the best thing. Just like if you feel like that should be probably between you and the bishop and the Lord. Eric Ryle, I'm the ward mission leader. I have been checking your work for a while. Great stuff. Love the spreadsheet. Keep up the great work. Thanks, Eric. Daniel Hershey, what is coming after the rockets? Well, after the rockets would be more strikes from Israel, I would assume. I don't know. No one really knows. Like right now, we're in the stage where no one really knows how they're going to respond. They don't know which group is going to respond, and they don't know how much they're going to respond. But what they are sure of is that these different groups will respond with rockets, and then I would imagine certainly Israel would respond, and maybe they'll reach some kind of like ceasefire or something like that. But it's just really interesting that right now, unlike last week it was just kind of like a little skirmish, but now it's turned into an actual operation and could turn into a war similar to like the smaller wars that they've had before. So for example, I'm going to go to Wikipedia list of Israeli wars. Yeah, list of wars involving Israel. So in recent history, for example, in 2021, there was the Israel-Palestine crisis, or Operation Guardian of the Walls. There were riots between Jews and Arabs in Israeli cities. Also, Hamas in Gaza sent military rockets into Israel. And Iron Dome intercepted most dangerous rockets. Israel attacked targets in Gaza. Okay, so that was like the last one that's listed here on this Wikipedia article, and it's probably pretty accurate because I don't recall much since that time. Before that, the most notable skirmish or operation before that was in 2014, the Gaza War or Operation Protective Edge from July to August of 2014, military offensive on the Gaza Strip as a response to the collapse of American sponsored peace talks, attempts by rival Palestinian factions to form a coalition government, the kidnapping and murder of 3 Israeli teenagers, the subsequent kidnapping and murder of a Palestinian teenager, and increased rocket attacks by Israel on Israel by Hamas militants. I can't remember when they essentially took over the Gaza Strip. Oh, that happened. According to this, it says it won the 2006 Palestinian legislative election and became the de facto government authority of the Gaza Strip following the 2007 Battle of Gaza. I remember I remember when that happened because before that time, it was I'm pretty sure it was the Palestinian Authority that was in control of the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. But at that point, you had this terrorist group that essentially gained control of the Gaza Strip. Kind of weird. So anyway, okay, so 2021, 2014, in 2012, there was Operation Pillar of Defense. And then in from 2008, well, no, December 2008 to January 2009, the Gaza War. And that's the one that we were just talking about. So there's been these like kind of like limited skirmishes, right? So the fact that this is now like an operation is significant because I'm only counting 1, 2, 3, 4, only like 4 operations that are listed here. And going back beyond that, you get into the 2006 Lebanon War, Second Intifada, First Intifada, South Lebanon conflict in 1985 to 2000. So it seems like this is significant because now there's a new operation. The 5th operation out of 5 going back to 2008. Now, what's interesting is that conditions are different right now in the Middle East. I'm going to skip ahead here a little bit. So I saw this. Okay, this was put out by I-24 News English 1 hour ago. Saudi Arabia announces the resumption of work of its diplomatic mission in Syria over a decade after severing ties with Damascus. So this is just like another thing where Saudi Arabia is getting it's going along to get along. You know, it's going along with what Iran wants to do to get along. From what we've read, it seems like a big part of that is that the royals, the Saudi royals, they want to stay Saudi royals and not lose their position because most of the country is against Israel. So this is just like another step in the wrong direction for Saudi Arabia because they had already kind of they like reestablished ties with Iran through a China brokered deal that was this year, and now this story from an hour ago about the resumption of diplomatic missions in Syria. That can't be good. It can't be good that all these different organizations and countries are like starting to kind of like galvanize their alliance against Israel. Um, okay, so multi-front war. Let's see. Hanania Naftali's reports, this is 5 hours ago, Prime Minister Netanyahu with a message to enemies of Israel, don't mess with us. I mean, okay. Moshe Swartz at YWN Reporter says tanks seen moving toward the border area with Gaza near Sderot, Israel. Sderot is, if you were in that last live stream that I did last week, that was one of the towns that was getting hit by rockets. And so I don't know, the fact that tanks are on the move, it seems like it's not just going to be like an airstrike type situation. You know, it's going to be boots and treads on the ground in Gaza, I think. I mean, that hasn't happened yet, but they're moving those pieces into place. I-24 News English 3 hours ago. Iran pushes Hamas to join the Palestinian Islamic Jihad's response. Yeah, that makes sense because the three leaders that were killed, the three commanders or whoever they were part of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad organization. So here you have Iran trying to organize things and asking Hamas to join in this like future strike, which it doesn't seem like that's happened yet. Let me check and see if there's any updates. Ukraine, Russia. I don't know if you saw this story today, but in Russia, they were having a military parade. I think they were celebrating. I could be getting this wrong. I think they were celebrating Victory Day. So they had a military parade, but they only had one tank that was in the parade. If you've been following the Ukraine war, Russia has lost a lot of tanks. And so I don't think that they can spare any for a parade. No, I'm not seeing any. But yeah, here it is. Putin's May 9th victory parade. This is from Anders Oslund. Uh, was as pathetic as it gets. Why celebrate the 78th anniversary over Germany with a salutation of dictatorship of external aggression? Okay, that's. I mean, there's a lot that can be said about that. Yeah, no. So, still nothing. We're in that time between Israel doing their strike and the response from probably Palestinian Islamic Jihad, maybe Hamas, and maybe others, if they decide to do a big coordinated thing. Don't know. I just have to wait and see. Let me get back to everything else I was going to talk about. So Iran pushes Hamas to join. I'm just going to call it PIJ. PIJ is Palestinian Islamic Jihad. PIJ's response. Hamas has to think very carefully. Iran pushes them to react, but Hamas prefers to keep ruling without friction with the IDF. For Hamas, the price of making a mistake is huge. So I guess they have to worry about that. That was 3 hours ago. Another one from 3 hours ago. For terrorist organizations, it's important to keep the escalation on different fronts. Israel has to be ready in all arenas. What has been achieved in this operation is something that can help break the organization. And then also 3 hours ago, the resistance response will not be long delayed and will be through the territory. The occupation will pay the price for the escalation in the Gaza Strip. Islamic Jihad spokesman warns. That was 3 hours ago. So the response, according to him, the response will not be long delayed, but it's been 3 hours. But I don't know. All right, let's go back to the chat for a second. Okay. Donald Runlap says Iran game over. Ronald Dunlap, Hamas clown, Hezbollah, purple devil, Iran poop. David Colucci, Tractor Legacy, D Ward, finally caught you live. Been a while. Glad you made it. Vincent Bell, by the way, think and believe that the United States has to fall in order for Israel to be conquered. Well, possibly, or they just have to be distracted by other things like China and Russia. That's like what a lot of the analysis has said, that it's a perfect storm right now for Israel's enemies because the West is really preoccupied with what's going on in Russia and China wanting to make a move uh, on Taiwan in the near future, essentially. Of course, they've been wanting to do that for a long time, but it's like the more distractions that keep coming up, it's like the more likely someone will get what they want. Does that make sense? It's like it's kind of like the law against convoys in the United States. I don't know if this is like a worldwide thing or just in the United States, but like when you have truckers, I don't know the specifics of it, but basically they don't want truckers to like be all close together and going really fast all together, because the idea is that the police, if they catch them, they can only catch one. And so everybody else gets away. So there's like safety in grouping up and breaking the law together with speeding, and then only one gets caught. So it could be the same type of thing with this. You know, the more fires that break out around the world, the more people, you know, someone's going to get away with what they want. So I don't know. Uh, Daniel Hershey, why can you explain? I don't know if that's for me or someone else. D Ward, not if the U.S. stands by and does nothing. David Colucci, Tractor Legacy. I have in my blessing a lot of things that could come to pass based on my righteousness. There are things that have passed, but I could still do. Brendan Porter, have you done a video about the Battle of Armageddon? I'm curious to know who the players will be in this war and how the current events will lead into this battle. Do you think the U.S. will be there? I have no way of knowing, and neither does anybody else. There's been so much effort in trying to figure out who Gog, well, okay, Gog's the person, but yeah, who Gog is and where, what country or countries Magog is referring to. The only thing that anyone really knows, the way that it comes across when you're reading the scriptures, is that there's going to be an invasion from the north of Israel. That's like about as specific as it gets. And people will be like, "Oh, that must be Russia. Oh, that must be Iran coming with Russia from the north." Nobody knows. Nobody knows. In the book of Revelation, if you've been following my series that I've been doing where we've gone chapter by chapter, uh there is one part of it that I don't know if it's symbolic or not, but it talks about the Euphrates River drying up, which essentially it's like that event that kind of like initiates, or it's like a sign of these invading armies coming, the 200 million, which I don't know that that's necessarily a literal figure either, or if it's symbolic in nature. But either way, you know, if you want to see what I've done about Armageddon, go to my Book of Revelation playlist, but I don't think there's a whole lot of details really about that. Um, Remember, Armageddon is a battle within the greater war. There's kind of like three components to the final conflict. There's the war itself, and then there's Armageddon, which seems to be a key battle that takes place, centered on Megiddo. And then there's the very last part of it, which is the siege on the city of Jerusalem itself. That's basically the sum of what I know and what I've studied so far. I don't think that we have a whole lot of details. There's a lot of good guesses, I think, out there, but I don't know that we really have any details, anything too authoritative. International health coach, more wars are coming. Have faith and prepare. Listen to, follow and obey the prophet. And then IL, which I think is he was trying to do an Israeli flag. Ronald Dunlap, may the Schwartz be with you, Israel. G Grace, CF, come follow me is going to a single manual. No more 4-year rotation. No, I think what's happening. I think Jenica told me about this. I think that instead of like having like um a Sunday school version and an individual like home version, it's all just going to be one. I think that's all that's referring to. International health coach, May 9th is Victory Day. I watched it live to see if a UA flag would hit Red Square via a drone. $1 million bounty, but it didn't happen. Oh, like if someone tried to take out Putin during that time. Putin knows he's finished, had a wall and bulletproof barrier. Yeah, there was some kind of drone attack on the Kremlin. There's video of it, but it didn't do anything. Jill Brown, tomorrow is Jerusalem Day. Oh, it is? 4 years ago, President Trump dedicated the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. Tomorrow's Jerusalem Day? According to this, it's saying that it's going to be the evening of Thursday, May 18th, until the evening of Friday, May 19th. Just did a Google search for that. Let me just verify it with another thing. Yeah. I'm on officeholidays.com, Jerusalem Day in Israel 2023. And that also confirms Friday. Well, so basically, the day that we would think of it on the Gregorian calendar, it's basically on Friday, May 19th. But it would, on the Hebrew calendar, it would start at sundown the day before. Okay. I'm going to move on to some of the other things. So there is going to be a response, and it's probably at least going to be PIJ. Okay, 4 hours ago, why did the government decide to undertake this operation? This is from I-24 News English. Southern Israeli citizens live under ongoing terror cats. You don't know the kind of cats that they have there in Israel. We must know how to take initiative and respond. The government never underestimates its enemies. The IDF is always ready. Now, there is one thing about that. There's a Jerusalem Post article. This is probably biased, but here, I'm going to put it in the chat in case you want to pull it up, like if you're on a desktop or something. I'll put it in the description of this video too after the stream is over. So it's talking about how Netanyahu has a political reason for doing this right now. So let me just read a portion of this article. Okay. Operation Shield and Arrow. The launch of Tuesday morning's Operation Shield and Arrow, a meticulously planned and executed action in Gaza in response to last week's firing by Islamic Jihad of more than 100 rockets at Israel, is a further sign of the old Netanyahu reemerging. The operation was not launched impulsively nor under pressure from political rivals, both inside and outside the coalition. Tuesday morning's killing of 3 senior Islamic Jihad terrorists sent a loud message to Islamic Jihad, Hamas, and their sponsors that the current domestic crisis in Israel has not rendered the country feeble. That's referring to all these protests over the judicial overhaul. If you're new to this idea, essentially, Israel doesn't have a constitution. They didn't come up with one in the beginning because they wanted to wait for more of the exiles to return to the land. And then at some future date, they would come up with a constitution. So the Netanyahu side, backed up by the ultra Orthodox, wants to do certain things with the judicial branch. And then the other side is against that. And so there's been like these massive protests that have been going on week after week after week. And there was talk of civil war and all this stuff. And so essentially, this is saying that Netanyahu is trying to show everyone, nope, even though this is going on in the country, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden we're defenseless. Okay, so the message to Israel's enemies is clear. Don't test the country despite its eternal chaos. It still has the will and capacity and ability to act in a big way. Remember all the noise about reserve pilots who threatened a couple months ago in the heat of the judicial reform debate that they would not show up for reserve duty? There was like a big concern about that. You had like these people in the military that were joining the protest against the judicial overhaul. And so that prompted, that's one of the things that prompted Gallant, the defense minister, to have his own like press meeting without the knowledge of Netanyahu, where he spoke out against the judicial overhaul and how it's threatening Israel's security. After which Netanyahu fired him, but it didn't actually go through, and he kind of like, okay, no, you can stay, because everything kind of like got better. So he didn't actually get fired, and he's still the defense minister. So, so this is good for Benjamin Netanyahu, because it shows, hey, look, you thought that our military was disintegrating because of the protests. Those same pilots that were part of the protest, hey, they just carried out an operation against Gaza. So what do you think about that? Okay. Well, they did show up this week. Among the 40 aircraft involved in this operation, some of them were reportedly flown by reserve pilots. Tucked inside the overriding message to Israel's enemies, however, Netanyahu delivered another message, a secondary one, to Israelis and his coalition partners. I, Netanyahu, am in charge. I, Netanyahu, will lead and not be led. So, according to this article's opinion, this is put out by Herb Kainon with the Jerusalem Post. That person thinks that's why Netanyahu is doing this, or one of the things that he stands to benefit from by doing this operation. Okay, I-24 News English, an article from 6 hours ago. The UN Human Rights Office says Iran has executed a frighteningly high number of people this year, at an average of 10 per week. You may recall, I'm of this opinion, and I think there's enough to support it, that there is such a thing as the weaponizing of protests and starting revolutions in other countries. It's a new type of warfare where instead of going in either by covert means or clandestine means or overt conventional warfare or whatever, instead of doing all that, you using social media and whatever whatever other psychological operations that they have at their disposal. You use that to get a populace agitated over something and then have them overthrow their own government, which, from my point of view, is what happened with the Arab Spring. I don't, I don't tend to think that that was organic, and many other places in the world, including that country that starts with a U in Europe and in Iran. It seems like, this is my opinion, that there was an attempt to have that happen in Iran. There was like this protest that got going. Um, it seemed to be getting pretty serious, but it looks like Iran's like really clamped down on those protesters. They have the power and the will to put the protests down. Um, they're a brutal country in a brutal regime, so doesn't necessarily work the best in places like that, or at least in this case with Iran, they're pretty committed to staying in power. So that's interesting that Iran is just like really, I don't know. I feel like that they're a country that has a plan. They have a plan. They have goals. Okay, 1 hour ago. Oops. 1 hour ago, talks are reportedly going on behind the scenes between the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Hamas, as well as other Islamic groups across Israel, Gaza, and Lebanon regarding a major response to the recent assassinations by the Israeli Defense Forces against factions in the Gaza Strip. This may be why we have not seen a response by the PIJ yet, as they are preparing for a unified response on multiple fronts. And then, as part of that same thread, this is, by the way, this is by OSINT Defender. That's the name of the Twitter account. They also said in the same thread, I'm sure the Israeli Defense Force is also currently preparing for such an eventuality. Okay, so that's an interesting thing. Well, it says talks are reportedly going on behind the scenes. I don't know where they're getting that information, but if you didn't know what OSINT stands for, that's open source intelligence. So it's just like, intelligence or data points that are openly available to the public. It's not classified. It's not. It's openly available to like anybody. Because there is quite a bit that you can piece together just by what's publicly available. If you have, and that's one of the benefits behind Twitter, potentially, because it's not always true, but you have so many people on Twitter and other places observing different things, and it's now possible, unlike in times past, to like put all the pieces together and look at all these different reports from different people. You just have to be careful about the information because some of it is false, or it's tainted, or it's incorrect. So, but anyway, I guess that would make sense. So I guess that's kind of like not a good sign if that's why there's this delayed response. And that's also not a good sign, like if it's going to be outside of just Gaza. Because remember, I was going over that chart earlier where in the Gaza Strip, all you have, according to this, is Hamas and PIJ. So if those two are coordinating with other groups, then it has to be outside of the Gaza Strip. So are they coordinating with groups in the West Bank? Like, I don't know, Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade? Do they have rockets? I don't know. Or the tweet that we read mentioned Lebanon. Hamas is in Lebanon too, but the other group that's up in Lebanon is Hezbollah. But like, are some of these other groups, are they going to be in play? I don't know. That was just 1 hour ago, by the way. Okay. Let me see what's going on in the chat, if anything. The floor lord, or if we collapse in July due to the debt ceiling, we won't be able to help. Yeah, I don't know. It's possible. Ronald Dunlap, the Euphrates is mostly dried up. Will be gone in 20 years. Carl Baumeister, G. Grace. I think there will still be a 4-year rotation. I believe that it means uh, I believe what it means is that there will no longer be one manual for adult classes, individual children, etc. Yeah. Yeah, that's my understanding as well. International health coach. I've been deeply involved in this dang war since February 25th, 2022. Ukraine and Russia. Counteroffensive has already begun. Many stages, many fronts. Too wet and muddy. Need drier ground. Crimea is Ukraine's. Like what? They're starting to take Crimea back? Is that what you mean? Let me take a look at something. I thought I heard about something about Crimea in the news. I'm going to go to the Institute for the Study of War. I'm going to take a look at their map. Sorry, I wish I could put this on the stream. It doesn't look like there's. Yeah, it doesn't look like Ukraine's anywhere in Crimea. So maybe that's not what you meant. It feels like there's been very little progress as far as like changing these areas of control, these areas of occupation. There's been like very little change for a long time in this war in Ukraine. There's like little, it's like there's little victories and little parts that are taken over by either side, but it's like but largely it kind of just stays the same. I think the most recent like notable significant advance was when Ukraine took back the city of Kherson, because that's like the capital city of the oblast or the province of Kherson. The Russians had to flee to the other side of the river. But aside from that, to me, and I haven't been following this necessarily too closely, but it doesn't seem like a whole lot has really, like, there hasn't been any really significant changes. I know that even before Kherson, Russia had Lyman, which was a significant town, like logistically speaking, and they lost Lyman, and now Ukraine is in control. But I just this war, man, how long is this going to go on for? I mean, are we talking about just years? Are we talking about tens of years? Is it going to be like 20 years like the Afghanistan war? I can't remember if the Afghanistan was it 20 years or was it 22? I think it was 20 years. International health coach, terror cats. Ronald Dunlap, rooster, cow, pig, cow, chicken. Roger that. All right. Let's go back to Twitter. I'm pretty close to being caught up with what I wanted to share. 2 hours ago, this is from OSINT Defender. Israeli air defense units have reportedly been ordered to a high state of readiness due to the possibility of rocket/missile attacks from both the northern border near Lebanon and the southern border near the Gaza Strip. So that was before this other thing about the reported behind the scenes talks about uh, an organized response. But according to this, they're looking to the north and to the south, not so much from the West Bank. 10 hours ago, so like much earlier on in this this operation, Turkey denounces Israel over Gaza airstrikes. Three hours ago from Israel Radar, Islamic Jihad apparently trying to coordinate attacks on Israel from more than one front. Israeli air defense teams on elevated alert for incoming rockets from southern and northern borders. 6 hours ago, from Spriter, Netanyahu, quote unquote, 95% of Israel's security problems are because of Iran. It seems to be the story right now is that Iran is really the one, like I said before, just galvanizing its influence and in power in the region and coordinating attacks against Israel. 1 hour ago from Times of Israel, Netanyahu, Iran seeking to open multi-front campaign against Israel. And that gets me caught up from for the things that I've retweeted. So like I don't know what to think. I don't know how concerned to be because Israel, right? It's no secret that ever since the inception of Israel, they have not been welcomed in the region. Even before Israel won more territory, you know, when they took Jerusalem in other parts of the country, even before that, at the very get-go, there was opposition to the country of Israel, right? And so if we look at their wars, like I've said before, there's kind of like from what, and you know, this is a layman speaking, but my understanding is that there's really only been kind of like 3 wars that have been potentially where their existence was at risk, where it was like an existential crisis. The first one being the War of Independence, the Arab-Israeli War in 1948, which somehow they won with very few forces in hardly any equipment, like as far as like tanks and planes, that like nothing basically, but they won. Um, and then there were a couple other, you know, smaller things, and then there was the 6 Day War, where um, I think they were trying the like Egypt, Jordan, Syria. They were trying to get land that they lost back, but it ended up going like the other way, and Israel took more war. Yeah, following the war, the territory held by Israel expanded significantly. The West Bank, including East Jerusalem, which that I think prophetically that was very significant when they took East Jerusalem, because East Jerusalem is Jerusalem. That's like the old Jerusalem. And then the Golan Heights from Syria, Sinai and Gaza from Egypt. Okay. And then so the War of Independence, the 6 Day War, And then the third one was the Yom Kippur War, which was a surprise attack by Egypt and Syria. And then ever since that time, there's just been like limited skirmishes and things. You know, there were two intifadas, which were basically rebellions by the local um, Palestinians, you know, Israeli Arabs, stuff like that. You had two intifadas, and then like these other like the operations that we were talking about earlier in the stream, Operation Pillar of Defense, Operation Protective Edge, but nothing like really that big. So it's like if anyone was going to be serious about trying to destroy Israel, and it seems like I don't know, but I think the only ones that really have been really like truly has been Iran. And you know, they've been trying to develop nuclear weapons. In the meantime, they've been kind of like doing certain things. Like I know for a long time, I think they've been behind Hezbollah, but like what's happening now? It's like it feels like they're getting to the point where they're actually maybe going to try and do this potentially. You know, like I said, a lot of things are changing in the world. And now everyone's kind of like getting in line with each other. Saudi Arabia, Syria, Iran, Iraq, and then these different terrorist groups. They're all like starting to like unify, you know? And so this could be it. All I can say for sure is that it's different from in the past, you know? There really hasn't been a significant attempt to destroy Israel since the Yom Kippur War, and that was back in October of 1973. So everything seems to be aligning from what I can tell. Okay, Micah Vermeer, Russia needs to get out of Ukraine, all of it. First time catching you live, by the way. Welcome. Hiram Palmer, Northwest Arkansas. Hello, neighbor. Hello. And then Micah says, greetings from the Netherlands. Oh, okay, cool. Welcome, welcome. Well, we've been doing this for about an hour. Unfortunately, I think this is probably going to be it. Let me just do one more check and see if there's been any more updates or anything. Just as a very quick recap, Israel has initiated Operation Shield and Arrow, which is a response to a rocket attack a week ago. And that started because there was a prisoner, like a Palestinian prisoner, that went on a hunger strike, and then he died while in an Israeli jail. And so they decided to use that opportunity to, you know, that occasion to send off more than 100 rockets. So, you know, the Israeli Air Force responded a little bit, and then things died down. A week's gone by, which is where we're at right now. And because the conditions were right, they were able to assassinate 3 leaders of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And so now it sounds like they're preparing the different terrorist groups are preparing for a response, and it sounds like it might be coordinated, but we haven't seen anything yet. But it sounds like it's going to be a pretty big response. But we may not know much about that until, well, for me here, probably not until tomorrow morning, or probably within the next, I don't know, I would think certainly within the next 12 hours. Just going to check really quick, see if there's anything. 9 minutes ago, Palestinian media reporting several houses belonging to the Palestinian terror operatives surrounded in Kabatia, south of Jenin. Violent clashes reported. Okay, where is that? Where is that? That in the West Bank? Yeah, it is. It's pretty far north in the West Bank. It looks like it's probably just like, well, let's see. How far is it from Nazareth? No, sorry. 40 minutes by car. So about 40 minutes south of Nazareth. Okay, so what the heck was it saying? Palestinian media reporting several houses belonging to Palestinian terror operatives surrounded in that place and violent clashes reported. So I don't know if that's part of Operation Shield and Arrow, but probably I would think it may be unrelated. Um, yeah, I think that's it. So, I guess we'll see what happens over the next like 12 hours or so, and we'll see how serious this is going to get. Just as a reminder, they're saying that Operation Shield and Arrow is just getting started. And of course it is, because today is just the first day. It hasn't even been 24 hours yet. So, unless it's like a very short campaign or operation, I mean, let me take a look at these other operations. So, Operation Protective Edge went from July to August of 2014. Operation Cast Lead, December 2008 to January 2009. And it doesn't really have anything for the other two. I don't know if they're like considered ongoing, probably not, but I don't know why there's not an end date. But it seems like, generally speaking, these operations maybe go for like a month or two. So is that going to be the case with Operation Shield and or yeah, Shield and Arrow? I don't know. Um was I going to do okay, I don't know. Um Patsy Reinhardt, first time I caught you live. Welcome, Patsy. International health coach. Dutch government needs to give liberty to Dutch farmers and stop messing with the food supply. Insane policies. Okay. Explosives in the turbine hall of ZNPP's fourth reactor. Uh, Linda Emily, are you live at 5 Central Time? That's when I started. I started it at 5. I just got done doing that video about every nation, kindred, and tongue and people. And I was ready to call it good for the day, but then I started seeing this stuff on YouTube about a flare up in Israel, and then it just like seemed more and more serious. So I realized that I should do a live stream. Micah Vermeer, can or have you ever done a video on Urim and Thummim versus seer stone being used in translation of Book of Mormon? No, and I probably won't. I know that Hannah Stoddard with Joseph Smith Foundation, like that's like one of her things. I don't have a strong opinion about it, but I've also never, I didn't even know that there was a controversy about that until I met her. I always just assumed that he did use a seer stone as well. That he used, what I had been told is that he used what was called the Nephite interpreters, Okay, the Urim and Thummim essentially, but I guess they were called Nephite interpreters according to what I had read. In that it was hard for Joseph Smith to to use it because it was like for somebody that was larger of stature, and the two stones were kind of like far apart. So it's like trying to translate it like this. And so he was able to use a seer stone. And for some reason, people get really weird. Like people that are against the church, they get really weird about, you know, different things that he did. You know, oh, he was involved in treasure hunting and folk magic and blah blah. Like, I just who cares? You know, everybody at some point is involved in something, and um, it was never a problem for me if he used a seer stone or if he like put it in a hat to block out the light. Like, I don't know if like that imagery like disturbs people. Like, does this disturb you right now? Does this disturb you? Like, who cares? Now if he didn't use a seer stone, then okay. Christian Fire Poppy. Millions of Christians are praying for Israel up until May 28th, Pentecost. Sounds like they need that more than ever. I just posted about this on my channel. Thanks for the Israel update. Yes, everyone, this is Jen Stevens, Christian Fire Poppy. Make sure to check out her channel and her blog. Pray for Israel, but pray for everybody. You know, we don't take sides in the conflict. We want everyone's happiness, peace, security. Aaron Pena, I like the hat look, Jared. Thank you. I do it every so often, but the reason why I'm doing it now is because I have to wait like a week or two before I can get a haircut. International health coach says that my hat's on fire. It's awesome. It's so cool. Micah Vermeer, yeah, I have her book finally. Yeah, the Urim and Thummim was first given to brother of Jared. Lois Leonard, why does it matter? Good question. I mean, obviously, you know, either one thing happened or it didn't. So if you're like historically interested in these things, that's fine. But for me, I don't care. International health. I mean, he could have like had a magic feather and had the Book of Mormon show up on a feather or like on a stick. Like who cares? It's just that God uses these like means. Like it's really interesting that you have like these like holy objects that do things like the Leahona, and then of course the Urim and Thummim. It's just like an interesting thing, you know. And I can't wait to learn more about that in the future. But I don't know. Latter Day Help is here. Hello, international health coach. Priesthood power is real, and the world knows not. Micah Vermeer. But CDNC 10, verses 1 through 3, the Lord told Joseph to restart translating the Book of Mormon after lost 116 pages, as like before, where Joseph Smith did use the Urim and Thummim. Latter day Help. I find it interesting the Book of Mormon is the Book of Mormon is only in Old English. And even though the Book of Mormon was translated differently than the Bible, we only have it in Old English. My understanding is that style of writing was chosen because it kind of like invokes that feeling of the scriptures. It invites that kind of like reverence, that kind of you know, because if it was just in like plain English, um the message would still get across, but it would feel like it's like in a different category from the scripture, from the Bible. You know what I mean? So it makes sense to me that he would have chosen or would have been instructed to. I'm not sure if he chose it or if he was instructed to use that style. So, but I feel like that's the right way because you want everything to like go together and feel like it's all the same thing and not have that like little distraction. Don Ireland, I might start journaling in Old English. Cool. Cool. I'm going to try and get a different straw hat. I like this one, but at Boot Barn, I've seen some that look really cool. I'll keep this one though. I think it'd be fun to have like a cowboy hat collection. Micah Veermeer, why did Joseph Smith need the plates if not for translation? Best to read the book of Hannah Stoddard because it's the basis of the rewriting of church history. It's kind of outside the scope of my channel. It's certainly interesting. I'm not saying that it's insignificant, but I can really only focus on the things that I do. This is mostly a Second Coming channel, but I also like to look into different doctrines and stuff. But like when it comes to things like that, or um, the location of the Book of Mormon, or things like that, it's just like it's a different niche. I'm just not into it. The Dice Flare, DNC 10 verse 3. Nevertheless, it is now restored unto you again. Therefore, see that you are faithful and continue on unto the finishing of the remainder of the work of translation as you have begun. The Dice Flare, he continued from where he left off, didn't restart. Aaron Pena, didn't Joseph use the seer stones, but he got to a certain point where he could translate without them? I think that happened too. I've heard that. I'm not exactly sure. The haystack, if Joseph healed a blind man by spitting in soil and rubbing it on eyes, he would be criticized. The Lord provides tools. I think there probably was a practical purpose for preparing tools like that. Otherwise the Lord would probably just be like, don't worry, you don't need those tools. I'm just going to like bless you with this ability. So I don't know. There's different questions that we don't really have the answers to right now. Or if there are answers, then maybe read Hannah Stoddard's book. I don't know. This is Chef Yoda. Bummer. I didn't get a notification you were alive. I'm sorry. Micah Vermeer, it's connected to the second coming in the way that it's splitting the church. I don't know. SH random out there question. Does anyone know, for example, if the second coming came next year, what body do we have? A translated body? It wouldn't be the resurrected body, right? And the sick. No, everyone, while you're still in this phase of mortality before you reach 100 years old, if you're worthy, if you're not a celestial person and accounted among the wicked, then you'll move on into the millennium and you'll have a translated body. You'll still have the power to procreate, although a translated body doesn't have blood, which I'm looking forward to. I don't know. There's not many more details that I know other than that. All I know is that translated bodies, just like resurrected bodies, do not have blood. Translated bodies, there's no sickness and disease. I don't know if that means like our bodies don't age the same way that they do right now. Like if you like grow up to your prime and then you just like keep that appearance, I don't know, because aging has to do with our degenerate situation. Sin literally brought on degeneracy and physical death. So all I know is that you will be translated, everybody, not just people that get caught up to descend with Christ, but everyone that remains on the earth, regardless of your religion, as long as you're terrestrial or celestial, you'll be translated. And then at 100 years of age, then you go from a translated state to a resurrected state. Jabulani 22 Shepo. Joseph was a prophet, so the Lord can reveal whatever he wants and how to translate. Yep. Latter-day Help. When all other scripture is revealed to us, it'll be interesting to see if there is scripture from the other lands that Christ visited, when in the Book of Mormon he says he has more sheep to visit. Well, I know that for sure. I know that for sure because we're supposed to be getting that scripture from the 10 lost tribes. That is going to happen at some point. There was an interesting thing that Down H. Oak said about how we may get those scriptures. Let me just find it really quick. Can you take this? Or what do you? We're leaving. Where? Oh. Okay. Down H. Oaks. Okay, this is from a general conference talk, April 2006, called All Men Everywhere. And this is what he says. In fact, you know what? I wonder if it'll let me put the whole thing in the chat. I'm going to try. Oh, there's a 200 character limit. Oh, this goes way over 200. Okay, so I'll just read it. What? Bye. Okay. The Lord not only manifests himself to all nations, he also commands that they write his words. Know ye not that the testimony of two nations is a witness unto you that I am God? And remember that I remember one nation like unto another. Wherefore I speak the same words unto one nation like unto another. For I command all men that they shall write the words which I speak unto them. For behold, I shall speak unto the Jews, and they shall write it, and I shall speak unto the Nephites, and they shall write it, and I shall speak unto the other tribes of the house of Israel, which I have led away, and they shall write it. And I shall also speak unto nations of the earth, and they shall write it. Furthermore, the Book of Mormon teaches that all these groups, now this is Dallin H. Oaks talking. Furthermore, the Book of Mormon teaches that all these groups will have the writings of the others. We conclude from this list that the Lord will eventually cause the inspired teachings he has given to his children in various nations to be brought forth for the benefit of all people. This will include accounts of the visit of the resurrected Lord to what we call the lost tribes of Israel and his revelations to all the seed of Abraham. The finding of the Dead Sea Scrolls shows one way this can occur. So at some point we will, and it seems like not just from the 10 lost tribes, but also other nations. He specifically said, and his revelations to all the seed of Abraham. So that would be much broader in scope than just Israel. You know, it would, I would assume it would include the Muslim nations. I don't know if that's referring to the Quran or if there's like a more there's like a more pure version of the Quran. Maybe the Quran's been corrupted, or maybe there's some scripture that was written among the children of Ishmael that's been lost, and it'll come forward in due time. So we have that to look forward to. International Health Coach. Scriptures are so interesting to me because each prophet speaks in his own style. We are each an individual, and God knows all. Revelation often comes word for word from the Lord. Just do your best. Let's see, Mrs. Chef Yoda. During the millennium, mortals will still live on Earth, and they will continue to have children as we do now. See DNC 4558. Colton Walters, I went back and watched King Charles' coronation after your live stream yesterday. Why was it so serious? Not a single smile. Is it supposed to be like a solemn assembly, or are they just that miserable? Yeah, that's a question I have. I know that it is supposed to be a solemn occasion, or at least during certain parts, but even afterwards, it felt like when there were smiles that they were kind of forced. They weren't genuine. I don't know. It was, I don't know. It's kind of disturbing. The haystack, it'd be interesting to see if the sealed portion brings genealogy of Joseph in Egypt and then as work is done, resurrected, being led us to further records back to Israel. Well, yeah, it could happen that way. If you'll remember, or I don't know if you saw these videos, both Brigham Young and Joseph Fielding Smith have said that the people that do not have a record, if you were just like some person from a long time ago in Cambodia or something like that during the Middle Ages, and there's no record of you, those records are going to be furnished by resurrected beings to, I guess, to temples. And so whatever we can't find between now and the millennium, or when the resurrection takes place, it'll be that information will be furnished by resurrected beings that have those records on the other side. So I expect that's probably mostly what would happen. Latter-day Help, a stone engraved with a scripture from Isaiah now fronts a renewed view of the Salt Lake Temple. The scripture is Isaiah 2:2. Oh yeah, somebody sent me an email about that, but I didn't do a video. I didn't feel like there was enough to do a video, but yeah, yeah, I know about that. International Health Coach, the Book of Mormon is true. It is the word of God. It is the second witness that Jesus is the Christ, the promised Messiah, the Savior and Redeemer of all mankind. It is the stick of Ephraim from Ephesians. Kizzy, with the newly revealed script, will the newly revealed scriptures come before or after the second coming? I don't know. Colton Walters, part 1 of 2. Did you all see the stone that they recently put in front of the Salt Lake Temple, Isaiah 2:2? And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be, oh, he must be typing in the second part. Brandon Porter, I serve my mission in Russia. I heard stories about Christ visiting their people. I'm looking forward to reading those scriptures along with the full writings of the brother of Jared. He saw everything. Yeah, and you have to think how history is kind of like, I mean, all throughout time, history has been edited, covered up, censored, hidden, and stuff like that. And so it's not too much a stretch of the imagination that some of these books from whoever, from the Sons of Ishmael, from the Russians, from the Aborigines in Australia, that a larger power, like an invading power, comes in, sees those records. The records go against the prevailing the invaders' religion or political beliefs or whatever, and so they're destroyed, or maybe they're archived and put away somewhere for a long time. Everyone always talks about the Vatican archives, and who knows what's there, you know. I know a lot of records were destroyed when the Spaniards came to the Americas. They destroyed a lot of the indigenous records of their beliefs and religion and stuff like that. So there's probably a lot of secrets out there that have been hidden away, or it could be that all copies were destroyed except for one, and then just like Dallin H. Oaks said, maybe they're just like the Dead Sea Scrolls. They're hidden in some very safe location, but they're not going to surface until some future time. So, okay. There's all sorts of possibilities. Micah Vermeer, you're probably familiar with the Pickerings. Yep. Yes, I am. I'm familiar with the Pickerings. I'm familiar with Philpott. I'm familiar with Michael B. Rush. I'm familiar with Watcher Palmer. I'm familiar with all of them, just like you are. And if you're about to say something about the appointed times, I have a whole playlist about that. It's called it's my Judaism playlist. But yes, yes. Micah Vermeer, how do you feel about their work and predictions about the events of the second coming? I don't know, because I've only watched a couple other things. Like when it comes to like these other people, these other YouTubers, I don't claim to have all the truth or anything like that, but I tend to disagree a lot with some of these other ones. I would agree with them that the Jewish feast days are important. They're we know that for a fact because the gold plates came forth on Rosh Hashanah, the Feast of Trumpets. And that was a very fitting day for it to come because that's when the shofar is blown. That's why it's called the Feast of Trumpets. And it's a call to prepare for the Day of Atonement 10 days later, the 10 days of awe. So just like how we're in this last season of the harvest, essentially before the second coming, the Book of Mormon has been a call. It's been a shofar call of warning and repentance to the world before the second coming. So the the gold plates came forth on Rosh Hashanah. In the years before that, Joseph Smith met with the angel Moroni on one of the fall feast days, except for one year. I can't remember which year that was, but each other year it was during one of the feast days. And then Elijah came to the Kirtland Temple on first fruits. So they still have relevance. As far as like making any predictions, I don't know. Um, I heard from somebody that they put the prediction out pretty far. Maybe it was 2026 or something like that. I don't know. I haven't seen that video, so I can't really comment. Um, I do have an upcoming video where, and I've kind of already done this before when it comes to Shavuot, which is the Feast of Weeks, which is also known as Pentecost or the Feast of the Harvest, where like I feel like that's like a really good day for the burning to take place. And just in short, it's because you know the earth was baptized with water, right, at the time of Noah, and then when Christ comes and when the earth is cleansed, it's going to be the baptism of fire or the earth receiving the Holy Ghost. And it was on Pentecost or Shavuot that the Holy Ghost came during New Testament times. For some reason, the Holy Ghost was not given until Pentecost. And so therefore, could it be that in some future time, whether it's this year, next year, 10 years from now, that the day of burning would happen on Shavuot? It could be. It's the day of the Holy Ghost. It's also the day that is commemorated as the receiving of the Ten Commandments from Mount Sinai. So it's like the commemorating of when Israel as a people, as a nation, as a people, became a covenant people of the Lord. And so if that was like the time of the marriage or the betrothal, we know that marriage is a symbol of the last days and the second coming. And so if that was the betrothal at Mount Sinai on Pentecost, then maybe the marriage would happen on Pentecost as well. And that would be, the actual marriage, not like the end of the betrothal period. I don't know. I have a lot of ideas about that. Um, let me check this again really quick. I'm about to take off. Um, Israel conflict news on Twitter 14 minutes ago. Clash is still being reported. Apparently, one house was stormed, but the wanted person was not there, according to Palestinian media. No injuries reported so far. So I don't know if that's that same house that we were talking about earlier that was in Jenin, the city of Jenin. That's in the northern part of the West Bank. Yeah, I'm not not seeing anything else. So still no rockets, but every minute that goes by, we're getting closer and closer to that eventuality. Latter-day Help, records of wars, contention, building ships, meeting houses, temples, etc. Helaman 3:14. Colton Walters, Jared, that is my favorite video of yours when you covered Moroni visiting Joseph Smith on Rosh Hashanah. I have shared that video a dozen times or so. Yeah, I'm just glad that someone realized it, and yeah, I can't take credit for that, of course, and you know that it was that person that wrote that article in the Ensign. I'm glad that person or whoever realized that. It was pretty significant, I think. Micah Veermeer, I always had a general idea slash feeling that if Christ came to the Nephites in the year 33 or 34, that the second coming in glory would be somewhere in 2033, 2034 also. So when Pharaoh Pickering calculated that year, quarter four, the fourth quarter of 2033 and 2034, it felt right. Yep, could be. I hope we don't have to wait that long, but I feel like there's a lot that points to sooner than later. But I have to go. I'd have to go through all the different quotes. It's been a long time since I've gone over that particular spreadsheet. But yeah, it could still be 10 more years away. And it's going to be a long time of doing YouTube. But whatever. Maybe by that point, maybe I'll like write a book and I'll join the club of writing books. I don't know. Sorry, give me a second. What in the world? Imran Khan supporters destroy Pakistani army barracks. There's like something weird going on in Pakistan. I don't know what it is though. Okay, 4 hours ago. This is from Toy Alerts. Okay, Shin Bet chief. We thwarted PIJ, which is Palestinian Islamic Jihad cell in Jenin, making rockets to fire at Israel. That's actually from a Times of Israel article. I'm going to put that in the chat in case you want to check it out. So that must be what those other what those other tweets were about. So rockets being made in the West Bank. So I don't know if they're just like in the process of being manufactured, but not necessarily being prepared for uh, this moment in time right here, or if they were being prepared to join in a response. Let's see what it says here. Following Halevi, Shin Bet chief Ronan Bar says Israeli forces recently foiled a cell in the West Bank city of Jenin that was seeking to fire rockets at Israel under the direction of one of the senior Islamic Jihad operatives killed overnight. Quote, we don't tend to let Afula become a target of rocket fire, end quote, he says, referring to the northern Israeli city. Afula? Oh, that's just like barely north of Jenin. It's basically right in between Nazareth and Jenin. Bar says Trek is Ed Din and Jihad Ghanem were arch terrorists who orchestrated terror in Gaza from the West Bank, while Khalil Batini played a central role in rocket fire from Gaza. Is Ed Din operated 20 terror cells targeting Israel, he says. One of these was the cell in Jenin, in Jenin refugee camp that, quote, in recent weeks had begun producing rockets and launchers, end quote, to fire it at Israel. In what Barr called a dangerous precedent. The members of the cell were arrested and confessed, he says. He mentioned another cell thwarted in Ramallah that was planning to fly attack drones into Israel. He notes that Palestinian Jihad is fully funded by Iran. The hands are Palestinian, but the voice is Iran's. We won't let Iran work via proxies. And end quote. And Israel will counter all its efforts, he adds. Okay. Okay, no, seriously, I need to go now. Oh my gosh. I just looked at the timer and it feels like just like 2 minutes ago we had just hit an hour and now we're at an hour and 42 minutes. Holy cow. I have other things I need to do. Okay. Thank you guys for joining. It's been fun. I always like connecting with you. I try to be as interactive as possible. I think it's a good thing. I appreciate your support, respect, and just who you are. So thank you for watching this channel and being part of this stream tonight. I hope you have a good rest of your night. I'll have more stuff coming out. I have never ending things to talk about. And I'm just ever trying to search just everything that I possibly can, and let's just like get it all down as good as we possibly can. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good night.